there. You can Google it. It's called the McKinsey report. It's called Diversity Matters. It's a great report. It's not like so boring to read. It actually has a lot of great information within it. And what they did was they studied, it's a little bit older now, but they're actually, I heard they're coming out with a new one in 2018, was they studied 366 corporations, over 1,000 executives. They studied them, they did research for 3 years across the world, so except for Asia and Russia, but they did the UK, United States, Canada, and Latin America. And they studied them over a 3-year period, and they were trying to find if there was a correlation between diversity at the top level and profitability. And they found there was a direct correlation. They found that there was a significant advantage to a corporation that had diversity within the executive level or in leadership, just at the top levels and who the managers were. So this is just some of the research. So basically what they found was, at the bottom line, so if a company at the top level had a diversity in gender, if they were in the top 25% of diversity, so they had a nice balance of gender at the top levels, they were 15% more likely to have a financial performance above the national median, the industry median. If they were in the top 25% of diversity at the executive level for for ethnicity, they had a 35% more likelihood to have a financial performance above the national industry median. And they found a direct correlation for the opposite. If you were in the bottom 25% of the industry within your diversity, you were 25%. You had a 25%. You were below 25% in your financial performance below the industry median. So there was a significant correlation. They understood that there is a profitable companies that have a diversity, whether it's gender or whether it's ethnicity, and they're expanding this research into many more areas, that there is a direct correlation of their profitability within the industry and sustainability, how long they're going to be around. So the other thing is about, the thing I hear in the industry more than anything is about being able to recruit talent. There's definitely a lack of people in the industry, so it's hard to find the right people. And then once you get them, it's how do you retain them? And what this chart says is that basically there's a correlation. There's also a time where you invest, like how much you invest in your employee. So basically, you have a new hire, then you do an onboarding thing, and then when you start getting money back from your employees. So in the beginning, you're getting nothing. It's just a negative output, right? You spend all the time, you recruited them, you onboarding them, you're not getting it. But once you start getting to the training phase and they're starting to have assignments and certain tasks, that's when you're actually starting to get back from them. But a lot of times people don't make it to that level. If somebody's coming into the industry, especially in millennials, and there's many in the room, and many not, it's like half and half, I think. If they don't feel that company, if they have to assimilate or they don't see there's a lot of diversity or they feel like they have to cover who they are, they won't stay. You can recruit all day. You can spend a lot of money and effort recruiting a diverse employees, but the minute they get in and they understand that this is not the place for me, you've lost them. They're going to walk out the door. And they say they did a study, and basically the cost of losing an employee, and this might be just corporate America in talking about the numbers, but it's over tens of thousands of dollars, or up to 1.5 to 2.5 what that employee's salary would have been for the year. Every time you lose an employee, you have to recruit a new one. So basically, it's all that time and effort, what you're losing from not having those people on the floor, maybe a switch in staff. So it really is important to create an inclusive environment and making sure that that person feels valued, and we're going to talk a lot about that coming up, is extremely important. I don't know if you have, no? So what we're going to talk about next is we're going to talk about unconscious bias and privilege, because this is all great. Everybody's probably like, wow, this is great. This all makes sense, right? Like having diversity is brilliant. Like you should definitely have diversity. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Like why doesn't everybody have it? Like it's good for creativity. It's good for the bottom line. And one of the major things holding us back is unconscious bias. So the thing is you have to realize is that we all have it. Everybody in this room has unconscious bias. It's a self-defense mechanism, believe it or not. If you see, basically, we see over 11 million images a day, right? Your brain can't process all that information. So your brain has to make shortcuts. So for example, if I see a bear, right? I'm in the woods, I see a bear, right? And it's coming towards me. My brain automatically goes to, what do I know about bears? And it goes really fast. It's like, I probably in my mind picture a bear cutting, like eating somebody's head off, ripped off their body, because I've seen that in the news or I've read a story, and it instantly just goes to bear, dangerous, run. Even though you're not supposed to run. I think you're supposed to lay and play dead, but that's a whole nother story, right? So instantly, but that's unconscious bias. Like your mind is already like fixed. So we all do this every single day. We see something, we make a quick decision about what we're seeing. These days, I don't think most of us have to worry about the bear, but it is, you get the point. So basically, it basically applies to how we perceive other people and other things within our life. So it's combating it is hard. It's really hard not to have these thoughts. And it's something that we all have to fight every single day. Like, for example, and there's a few more slides, but for example, I saw my friends when I was doing research for this seminar, and I spoke to some of my friends in the industry of color, and I didn't tell them why we were meeting. I just said, hey, if you'd love to meet up, drink, I want to pick your brain about something I'm working on. And when I told them what I was working on, they laughed at me. They went, sure, working on a diversity seminar? I said, because I'm white, right? And they went, yeah. And I went, dude, unconscious bias. I'm like, you think I have no diversity story because I'm white. I said, but I'm a woman. I said, so that gives me some diversity cred. Like I said, but everybody has a diversity story, no matter where your background is from. You have some sort of diversity story that's happening. And we're going to talk about privilege in a bit, because there is definitely privilege that comes in different forms of who you are in life. But it's something we all have to be aware of. For example, and then I know my companions will have things to talk about and contribute to this conversation. This is a fun example of unconscious bias. So this is, Apple. This is YouTube launched the first app for Apple iOS, and it's for the videos. And 15% of the 5 to 10% of the videos appeared upside down because all of their engineers were right-handed, and they didn't think about the left-handed person at all. It's an interesting example of unconscious bias when you just are not thinking about another person's perspective and how you perceive the world. But this is a very common one. So I know it is. I think about it sometimes. When I was in the position of hiring people, I was like, how old is this woman? Okay, when is she's married? How long is it before she's going to leave this organization? And so this is the one that, we all have to fight against every single day. It's like when you meet people, how do you perceive them and the thoughts? Because every single person is an individual. Every person has their own background story of where they came from. So we have to work against it. Now I know some of, Hannah, you've experienced like unconscious bias. And actually I want to give one more story leading to what we're going to say. The other thing I know my unconscious bias was about women in the industry. When people used to ask me that question, how does it feel to be a woman in the industry? I used to be like, oh, Jesus, I'm a woman, no big deal. Like I'm a woman in the industry, forgetting how hard it was for other people. It's never been hard for me. I've been very lucky. Or I don't see it. I don't feel it because I grew up a tomboy. I've always been surrounded by a bunch of guys. My brother used to try to kill me on a daily basis. He literally did. He taught me how to play baseball by throwing it at my head until I learned how to catch it. I really had a lot of lumps. I always had boys, and like my first job, real job, I worked in a trucking company. It was just me and like 50 dudes. Like half my day I spent dragging my truck drivers out of a strip joint. Like just ripping them, and they didn't want to listen to me, but I learned, and they pinched my ass. I mean, I didn't think about it. It's just like, I'm a girl. It's what you have to deal with. No, I'm not supposed to have to deal with it. So I didn't have a lot of empathy for a lot of people. And then I started, the Me Too movement happened, and then I learned a lot of stories about a lot of people I knew, and I was like, wow, I had a lot more empathy. And then I also had conversations with fellow women colleagues, and I talked even to Hannah about this. And I said, have you ever suffered because you're a woman in the industry? Just being, people ever been biased against you? And she had some interesting stories to
Well, it's funny because I think in the modern era, like a lot of women want to say we're exactly the same and stop asking me what it's like to be a woman in the industry. You know, I'm just a person in the industry. And I think that's certainly true, but I've been in the industry now for 18 years, and my own experience, oftentimes there were moments where, yeah, absolutely, I was treated differently. And funnily enough, like sexism in the industry often came from women as well, and you'd get women coming into the bar and they'd be waiting for a cocktail, and they're like, they're already serving, you know, what can I get for you? And they're like, oh no, I'm waiting for him, he's going to serve me. It's like, well, that's the bar back, so he's not going to be making you a drink. I'm the head bartender and I can make you a cocktail if you like. So there was like that initial thing, you know, people did treat you differently. And I'm sure that that is changing, but even throughout my career as I like progressed and became a manager, I found that certainly it was different leading a team. And I've noticed that people often say about women who are put into those positions where they are in charge that they tend to be mean or a bitch, or like you get this perception that we're more angry, and sometimes there may be this thing that you need to get the job done and people are not responding that well to you. So I think certainly there's that perspective, but you see that people that get promoted oftentimes can have less experience, and I think we have an unconscious bias towards people that are tall, with deep voices, who are oftentimes men. And we're not asking, like, why is it that the small needy people that have got more experience not getting these jobs? So, like you said, you know, I think there still is this unconscious bias towards particular people, particularly if they appear like leaders, you know.
Absolutely. I think all the women in the room probably agree. There's definitely sometimes, and it doesn't always happen. A lot of times I feel completely conscious. I don't know if Monica, you were talking about something before about how people sometimes view you.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm one of those people that doesn't really fit into many boxes. Just because, I mean, obviously I was born in Korea, but I know less about Korea probably than most people, because I was adopted, so I grew up in Norway. I don't look Norwegian, I have a very Norwegian name, so people can never fit me in a box. And then I used to work in this bar market where as a woman it was very, very difficult. I had to have, not because I didn't speak the language, but I always had to have a translator, aka a man, that would, I would talk to him, he would talk to the other person, he would then talk back to him, and then he would translate back to me, because men and women don't speak the same language in some countries. We do, obviously, but it was just very, very challenging. And I think it's, it's interesting how even today, sometimes, if you need something to be done with a certain authority, I just know that it's easier for me to get one of my colleagues to do it rather than to go down the hard route and do it myself, even though I know that I'm capable of doing it. But if I just need a little push, I just like go to my partners and I say, can you just deal with this?
Because they're guys and they're
because people just
listen,
you know, it's even, there's been many studies, like I can't remember which it was, but there was a couple of years ago, there was a study on how you answer your emails, if it's signed by a woman versus if it's signed by a man. So if it's signed by a woman, the way that most people would respond is slightly more like up to down, like from that you write it in a slightly more aggressive way, like you should just be dealing with me being the boss. Whereas if you sign it as a man, you answer in a more respectful way. And then they kind of just published the things, and it was actually the same person which was the sender in all the emails, but the responses this person got when he was trying to be a woman versus being a man is shocking. But it's a double-edged sword, because I think sometimes women, we are also our worst enemies, because we all say, like, sisterhood, we support each other, but do we? Like, honestly, do we? I don't feel we do. And even if you, there was a research study now asking women, this specifically one was in the US, asking women, do you prefer male or female boss? Almost 70% of the women asked said, I prefer a male boss because I feel that he will treat me more fair, as opposed to other women, because other women, they try to keep me down. It might not necessarily be true, but if that's the perception that we have, then of course we are already there failing, because historically it's been like, oh, we're gonna have one woman, we're gonna have one person of color, we're gonna have one this, check, now we are diverse. Yay! It doesn't work like this, you know? It only works if you actually want to change. So we're used to, as women maybe, we're used to competing against each other. And of course, if it's a competition, then you want to come out on top. And how do you come out on top? Well, there's several ways. You can lift others and get then they will again lift you get to the top. Or you can just elbow your way up, which has been the way that it's been done. I mean, and this is how we kind of are working against ourselves.
No, that's a good point. If we're women, we're women. It doesn't matter where you come from, what color you are, we should stick together. And then the last part about the unconscious bias, how you apply it in your bar. Think about it, and a friend of mine told me he has to fight it every day, the fact that he works for he works for the Avery in New York, and they have the office in the back, which offers, sometimes whiskeys that are $2,000 a dram. Right? They're very, very expensive. And he says every day he has to fight the unconscious bias because he'll look at how somebody's dressed or what they're wearing or who they are. And he's like, should I waste my time giving this person, spend the time telling this person about these really expensive whiskeys, or should I just assume that he can't afford them or she can't afford them? So he's like, every single day, he's like, I fight that to make sure that I give everybody the same service and I don't, use that bias. Or it's the same, it's like assuming that, because I've seen this many times, people assume that because I'm a girl, even at some of the great cocktail bars, have assumed I kept going, no, I want a boozy and stirred drink. And they just would not, they just kept not acknowledging the fact that I was like, they're like, no, we have this citrus. I was like, I want a boozy and stirred drink. And they the waitress kept fighting me on it, and she kept offering me the other drinks. I was like, okay, I just want whiskey neat. And she was like, oh, okay. And it was like a fight. So don't assume, especially your customer, having that unconscious bias that, a girl wants this or a man wants this. But this is a conversation I know we can talk about for a long time, but we have a big seminar to talk about. So now we're going to talk about privilege. Because most of us are unaware that we have it. We're unaware of the privilege you might have. And privilege comes in many forms. It could be in your gender. It could be in your skin color, it could be in your ethnicity, it could be in your economic background. Each of us has it in a certain way. Granted, I'm going to say this in the uncomfortable statement room, if you're white, you have a bigger privilege. Because I look around the room and 98% of the room looks like me, right? And you have a certain privilege, but it's the reason why I bring it up, and if you're white male, you have more privilege, right? It's the way life is at the moment. Right? But it's about we bring it up because it's to make you aware of it and to understand it, because you also understand that people who work for you might not all have the same privilege that you have, and to make them aware. I had this conversation the other day, and I was talking about how do we help people rise through the ranks in the industry, right? And I said, one of the things, my idea is that you have to create a clear pathway. You have to make sure, because you have to make sure you communicate to everybody who works for you what the pathway is, what they need to do to move forward. So if I'm a bar back, how do I move to the next level? And the person I was talking to, he was white, he was male, and he said, well, why do you have to tell them? They should know. You walk into a bar, and I've always known, that job is available for me. I never thought anything of it. And I said, that's white privilege, white male privilege. I said, you saw people at the top who have the same look and feel as you, so you just thought, of course that job. I said, but as people who are in the community, and people who own bars, and people who are managers or even brands, you have to make sure that people are aware, that you are aware. You have to use your privilege and also to be aware of your privilege, to understand not everybody feels the same as you do. So you have to have empathy for other people, and to make sure that they are aware like what they need to do to make that that opportunity is available and what you need to do to get to that next level, and let them know the path is clear. So does that make sense? And the biggest thing is also, when I was doing a lot of this research, is people sometimes jump on the bandwagon. Well, if you're white, or if you're white male, you should not be talking about diversity. You shouldn't have a voice in the conversation. And I get that, but it's not true. It's not true because I think one thing we have to look at, and same thing going back to women, that all of us women should have a voice, and we should work together as a team. Everybody should work together as a team. Is that the more voices involved, the better it is. So if I have more privilege than somebody else, I should be using and I'm on board with what you're trying to promote, use me. So if you find, there's some, white privileged guys who seem to be at senior levels and they're on board, they want the change and they're ready to do whatever, don't ostracize them, utilize their privilege. And if you are that person, utilize your privilege for good to spread the news. So does that make sense? All right. Anybody? So let's talk about how we're going to do this. How is this going to work? How are we going to embrace diversity? How are we going to bring this into everyday life? First, you need to make the decision to do it. You just have to make the decision and say, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make a commitment within my organization, within my bar, within my brand, that we're going to have a diverse company. Second, remember there's no one answer. So if you try something, it doesn't work, try something else. You could read 100 books and maybe only 5 of the things you read work out of the 100 things they suggest. Fight against the unconscious bias every single day. Every day you try to make a decision. Ask somebody else, say, hey, is this the right decision I'm making? Because I'm basing it on my own personal background, but there might be a different point of view. Recognize that not everybody got to the same place the same way. So I might have got to my level, I have my own story, Hannah's got her story, Sullivan's got her, Monica, we each all have our own story. So don't assume that they all have the same background. You might have a different story. Remember that everybody's story is different, sorry I said my own point. And then create a clear path. So these are like the top things that you can start doing right away, and now we're going to talk about how we start to make this happen. So putting it into place. So the number one thing is recruitment. So recruitment from within. So starting off, that recruitment from within your own organization. Is there a bar back or a waiter or somebody who you're overlooking? You never ask them, hey, would you like to have the bartending job? Did you ever ask them? Like making sure you're promoting within. I don't know, Sullivan? How you make everybody do. Oh, actually, where's the next one? Yeah, okay.
I always, for recruitment, I always say that I like to go for the underdogs because I feel like I was, for many years, the underdog. So I like to I've always had very good bosses, very strong leaders that I could look up to, being both men and women. And they always kicked me in the ass when I had to be kicked in the ass, and they gave me trust when I maybe didn't deserve it, but to give someone trust and to give someone this chance, it often repays you in not in necessarily money, but in effort, in loyalty, in just having fun at work. And I think that people that maybe haven't had a lot of trust and this kind of sense of community given to them, they sometimes, that's all they want. And this is so much more important maybe than what salary you're going to have or what kind of other benefits. Just having this sense of family or sense of team, I think. I think it's becoming more important also that recruitment shouldn't be a passive action. We can't just sit and we are amazing. Everyone should want to come and work for us. Let's just sit here and wait. That's not how it works. You have to proactively go out and see.
This takes you to the next one.
Oh, sorry.
So, which is one of the things we're talking about. So, Because well, just going back one thing back to the point, it's asking for referrals. So within informing them the opportunity, letting them know. So you're basically making sure that you're recruiting within. Sorry, I just didn't make that point. But expanding your network. Going to your point about this would be something you're constantly doing. A friend of mine from New York said to me, he said, I said, how do we find diverse people? Where do we go? Like how do we start recruiting them and bring them in? Because it's not like a lot of people sometimes are lining up for the jobs. And and he said, one of the places he worked was a place called Odeon, and he said it had the most diverse staff. This is like 20 years ago. He said the most diverse staff everywhere. There was transgender, there was transsexuals, there was every different color, ethnicity. So it was amazing. And he said one of the things that his bosses did really well was they were recruiting constantly. So every time they were out, they were constantly like, they met someone that had a great personality, or they would say, would you be interested in working at the restaurant, the bar? They would have them interview every week. So they didn't hire them every week. They just constantly, every week, were holding 4 or 5 interviews a week just to keep kind of like a pool of people. Because the biggest complaint is there's nobody in the pipeline. Well, there's nobody there. There's nobody in the pipeline. I wanted to hire people of diversity, but nobody was applying for the job. You have to, it just takes effort. But as we saw, that there's a financial benefit, there's a creative benefit, there's so many benefits too, so it's worth the effort. So you have to constantly recruit and just have a lot of resumes. So when the job does come available, you can then reach out to all those people, and if they happen to be available at that time, great. All right, do the interview again, make sure they're still interested. Also go outside of your network. Like in New York, we always laugh because we all go to the same bars. Like we go to PBT, you go to Milk and Honey, and maybe you go to Brooklyn, and you go to Mason Premier, and my friend goes, go to Harlem. He goes, go to Harlem, go to some of the gay bars. He goes, go to different places. You're going to meet different people. Get outside of your comfort zone so that you meet people from different walks of life. And they don't have to be somebody who works in the industry. They could be the best barista you've ever met. Monica, you were saying you said nurses.
Yeah, no, I like to. I like to hire people that likes to be with people. I don't necessarily care if you can make a drink, because if I cannot teach you how to make a drink, there's something wrong with me, not you. And so, you cannot teach people to care for other people. And just by choosing a profession that is basically mostly caring for other people, you show that at least you have that one. Right? And you're probably going to be a very nice person. I just think that some of the best people that I've worked with has been people that comes from very, very different backgrounds, professionally.
Yeah. So, Sullivan, you have great stories about staff.
Yeah, me I'm on.
No.
No.
Yeah.
You're on?
Yeah,
cool. My employees, they're all from different countries, from different type of background. But what led me to this is when I decided to become bartender. I decided to work in the hospitality business actually. I always had all the doors open to me. I just went with my motivation and I wanted to learn, so they gave me opportunities, and I never felt any kind of pushing back feeling. So I decided I'm gonna have my own business. I'll be exactly the same, giving chances to anybody. And right now, if I look into my team at Syndica, I have 2 men, one Greek guy, one Italian guy that is from Colombia. I have 4 ladies. One is from the UK, you might know her, Kathleen, from Niger. She just moved in Paris and I took her my team. I have Joanna, that's funny because when they ask me what is your position about gay people, LGBT, I'm cool, I'm completely cool. I don't have any people working for me who's gay or lesbian. And after 5 minutes talking, wait, I have Joanna, she's lesbian. I was because I don't really care about sexual orientation, I just forgot about it. And what else I have? Juliette, which is a French girl, and
there's one French person.
There's one French person.
Because I asked him, I said, you have no French people on your team. He's like, yeah, we'll go outside the box.
And by example, if we take Juliette, she used to work in the kitchen, but she was like, okay, I did some waitressing when I was younger, and I just want to be on the front house. I don't know anything about bartending, but I love working in front of people, so I'm okay, so I'm gonna take you as a waitress. She learned how to be a waitress. Then she was like, I'm interested in being bartender, so I taught her how to become bartender. And there's some changing at Aris, which is the Greek guy that's now in position of the leading, the manager of Syndica. Is about to leave in like 6 months' time. And Juliette will logically take the position of Aris because she's been here from almost the beginning. She understands all the point of view, what we want to do at Syndica. And so she carried the concept. So for me, it's just obvious, whether she's a woman or a man, she has the competency, so I put her in position.
But also tell them how you hired your right hand from Greece.
How I hired him? So
Why did you hire him? Like, he didn't have any bartender. You told me, like, just because he started, you just loved him. He was this person,
Yeah,
and he didn't
so.
speak any English or French.
I got invited to do guest bartending in Greece, in a city that people don't go, which is Larissa, because they all go to Athens, Thessaloniki, or the islands. And I met those guys that own a bar in Larissa that did really, really well. And they invited me for a guest bartending, and then I met one of the bartenders, which was Aris. And he greeted me with so much love and like, hey, my friend, how are you? I didn't know him. In 2 minutes' time, it made me feel so comfortable. So we spent like 4 days together, amazingly, best moment. And then he came to Paris for Hotel Spirit. He fell in love with Paris. He didn't speak. He had like a really, really bad English, no French at all. Really good Greek. And, so when I decided to open Syndic, I was supposed to form my partner because to teach my partner how to become bartender because he was a financial guy, he didn't know anything about like hosting people and stuff. And when I saw that we had a delay on the opening, I was like, man, I just can't take the time to teach you how to bartend. I need a serious bartender. And I had this feeling with Harris. I didn't even know if he was a good bartender, but I knew he was a good person. And so I just gave him a call. I'm like, man, I need a bartender. How do you feel like moving to Paris? 3 weeks after, I was just picking him at the airport. And since then, like, he's been there from the very beginning. And everything that we achieved right now with Syndica is thanks to him and the rest of the team. And just like giving chances to people who want to take it. And yeah, so far, like, I don't really hire on a resume. Give me a resume, I just put it aside, I said, I can see it. What is your hobby? What do you like to do in life? Why do you want to come here? And yeah, hire individuals. If I feel them, after it's all like personal, it's how I feel people. So if I feel you, I give you like just spend like 1 night in the bar. I see how you are acting towards the team, towards the people, towards what I'm telling you. And if I feel that there's even like a tiny connection, I'm like, okay, so I'll give you a chance. And then we go. So far, all the people that I hired, because my partner hired some, all the people that I hired, they're still in the company. Or they move for another position. For example, if I take like Marella, maybe some people know her as well. She's Croatian from when you're from Croatia. She's Croatian, and she
didn't speak any English or French either.
She didn't speak French. She grew up in Italy, and so she came with Croatian and Italian background. And I took her. She didn't know. She did like some like summer job like a waitressing. And I took her and I told her my way of being a waitress. She did it like for 1 year. She loved it, and it was like, I want to be a bartender because it looks like amazing. And I think like, okay, cool. Jumped behind the bar, and I taught her how to become bartender. And she worked with me like for like 2.5 years. When I opened La Commune, for me it was just obvious from the beginning that all the evolution that she did like in 2 years' time. I took her as my assistant, and she was like the number 2 after me at La Commune. She did like almost a full year with me. And then she had a job opportunity to become the manager at a new place in Switzerland. And because I was the manager of La Commune, I couldn't put her in my position, so I was like, I can't offer you better. So if you feel like, I mean, like you gave me like already like 2 years of your life, it's time for you to fly where you want. And yeah, now she's actually in Genova. She's going to open a bar in Genova. So just giving opportunities to people that deserve it. Yeah.
That's amazing. The other thing I'd talk about is also job listings. So when you're advertising for a job, how are you listing the job itself? You know, what is the language you're using so that people feel that they could qualify for this job, that there's an opportunity for them? Are they going to feel welcome even though they're not somebody, you know, they don't see it. They don't see themselves in that role because maybe there's nobody of color or there's nobody they're transgender, or they don't see it, so they're like, this is not a place for me. But how you list the words within your job advertisement and how you interview them, it tells them a lot. So it can encourage people, because you really do want to, if you want to get a diverse team, you want to encourage people of different educations and experiences to apply, and let them know you're willing to grow and put the effort in to move them up to the next level, kind of like we were talking about, moving them up into the next level. I just want to give you an example of a great ad that somebody, this is from the Dead Rabbit. And Blacktail, they actually have, so this is just snippets of some of the things they list. But basically, one of the philosophies is don't list the job, list the philosophy of your bar, and then figure out what position they fit into. So the single most important goal of our philosophy is to deliver a special brand of hospitality, what we call empathetic hospitality. And this revolves around an incredible team of dedicated people. If you go online, you can actually Google Dead Rabbit, Blacktail ad, job ad. Because there's a lot more in this. I took snippets off of it. You know, this is the title of this: to be successful within our business, here's what it will take. And there are multiple steps, but you know, it lets them know we are here to support. We expect the same level of investment from you. We expect you to be vocal when joining our team. We're always improving, encouraging your ideas, concerns, and feedback, both for our current businesses and for our future projects. If you want to blend into the background, this job is not for you. So it really is encouraging people that they are looking for people to speak their voice. It makes it very welcoming. And another part is also part of the Be Successful, letting people know that they appreciate diversity. You know, you must be appreciative of diversity. If you have issues with ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, or religious beliefs, you simply will not be hired. We have a diverse team based on inclusivity and equality. Everyone is included, no one is excluded. This also applies to our guests, and we expect you to provide them the same level of service for an A-list celebrity as we give to an unknown guest walking in for the first time, every guest, every time. I think this is general philosophy of life for Mars Bars. It's a great way, but it's a way of letting people know up front, like if they're applying for this job, this might be a place I can succeed. There's a place for me. I don't have to come in, I have to have all this experience. I just have to have I just need to be a good person. And if I have, the work ethic, it's going to be the place that I can, go ahead, Mike.
But I do think that also you need to, it's very good to talk about the philosophy and everything, but I also think you need to be honest and kind of let people know what you expect from them as well, in sense of job. Because I've had a few experiences where I've hired people and spent more maybe for bartender positions, and where maybe I wasn't clear enough where I said, like, I expect you to do your job every single day, not only when there are famous bartenders sitting and drinking at your bar. And also that it becomes an issue, like they don't want to necessarily do the job that they are hired to do, because they only want to be bartenders in a certain image of a bartender that they have, and they've been given this image from, I don't know, Instagram or Facebook or other social media, and then they become shocked, like, what? I have to clean the bar? Oh my god. Yes, you have to clean the bar, so you also have to be very direct in what's.
Absolutely. Well, I think in Sullivan, I don't know if you have any, with Milk and Honey, is there anything like expectations that you had to make sure people know, or
I think the important overriding thing was that you were encouraged to be as humble as possible, and
as what?
As humble as possible. And there were many times that bartenders got brought down a peg or two, don't go about town being an asshole about ordering really obscure classic cocktails that you would have to have the book in front of you to know the recipe, and don't be that guy. And I 100% agree with you. 80% of your job is cleaning things,
And so you say that.
I think every single person that comes into the company start for sure by doing the floor. Because I have many people that come here, I want a bartender, and Syndica has a good reputation, and I want to check this on my resume. But you're gonna start as a waiter. Because that's the best way you will understand the philosophy of the place, what we do, like why we use French alcohol, to know more about French alcohol, because you're gonna have the question of the customer. You're gonna understand the guest, you're gonna understand the team. You start being a waiter. You don't want to be a waiter, you're not going to be part of my company. Because I started this industry by being a waiter. I've been like waiter for like 3-4 years, up to floor manager in London, and I think waiting people is the first thing, the first component, the first thing that I'm waiting for from bartender. When at my first bar, when I started working, I had this interview with Sullivan, which was the first lady rising that high in the hospitality business in France, like 10 years ago. And she was like, what do you want? I was like, yeah, I want to be a bartender. I was like, 20. And it's like, what do you want to do? I want to join behind the bar and make cocktails. Like, you know, this is like the cherry on the top. You're gonna have to do the floor for a long time. And then if you survive the floor, then you make your first mojito. And I think for me it was the best way of like learning the job. And now every single person that comes into the company starts to do the